Polina Yuryevna, do we need a shot today? The kids shouted, bouncing around the school nurse's office. No, today we're just measuring height, Polina calmed them. Let's go and buy one to my office. You're so kind, one of the girls smiled. Polina absentmindedly stroked her hair. She loved children very much. She always tried to be gentle with them and never scare them with shots. That's why she took the small school nurse job, to help and support kids. But at the same time, children were also her greatest sorrow. 6 months ago, Polina thought she would soon experience the joy of motherhood. She had planned her maternity leave, prepared the nursery. She wasn't a person who liked surprises. Too much chaos had been part of her own childhood. Polina closed her eyes for a moment, letting herself drift back into the nightmare she had endured 6 months ago. When she found out she was pregnant, Grisha treated her like a queen. He was a man of strong passions and emotions, big and loud, with a determined chin. Against him, his petite wife looked like Thumbelina. They both wanted children and had talked about it even during their whirlwind romance. Everything had started so beautifully. She had gone to the factory after nursing school to help with medical exams, assisting the doctor. Grisha was then just a young engineer. Now he was a top specialist, always on the honor board, the first choice for business trips. Back then, though, he was just a cheerful joker and suddenly embarrassed during the exam. Can't men do this instead? He asked, turning red with shame. Girls, why do I have to undress in front of you? Come on, it's not like we haven't seen this before. Polina and the young doctor, Irina Ivanovna, laughed. You don't have a third arm, and these checkups are necessary. Fine, Grisha grumbled. But no talking about me afterward. The women laughed again. They had fun working together, giving their all. Irina had just graduated and quickly became friends with Polina. They still kept in touch, even though they no longer worked together. By evening, on that memorable day of the medical checkup, Grisha had brought her a bag of pastries from the local cafeteria. Then he invited her for a walk, and that was how everything started to spin. Polina quickly got used to the fact that Grisha rarely listened to anyone else's opinion. He was a natural leader, bright, charismatic, the life of any party, and he had trained his young wife not to argue with him. So when they learned about the long-awaited pregnancy, their marriage already 9 years old, her husband was overjoyed. Soon, everyone knew the Kuznetsovs were expecting a child. Polina felt a little embarrassed by all the attention, but Grisha just laughed at her superstitions and lived by his own rule. If he was happy, everyone else should be too. The first trimester was hard. She was tormented by severe morning sickness. She could barely eat and lost a lot of weight. Doctors even suggested she should take complete rest. But Grisha sincerely believed that a healthy woman could give birth anywhere, even in a field, and that she should always follow his wishes. Polina's opinion didn't matter to him at all. Our grandmothers gave birth in the fields, he would say. Nothing will happen to you. By the way, Kovalyova invited us to the sauna on Friday, he added. Oh, maybe I shouldn't go, Polina said, embarrassed. After all, she was pregnant. The doctors advised her to take care. Don't be silly, her husband replied confidently. A healthy body won't be hurt by the sauna. And why should I go alone? You've been sitting at home long enough. In the end, she went to the Kovalyovs' dacha. Going against her husband in the family was simply not done. Her mother-in-law, Nana Dmitrievna, had taught her that. Her favorite saying was, "The man is the head, the woman is the neck." She would be genuinely upset that Polina still hadn't learned to guide her husband the way she wanted. The sauna was heated very hot. Inside it was stuffy, and Grisha immediately dragged her into the steam room. Then he started a silly contest, making her stay as long as she could tolerate it, refusing to let her leave. After all, a wife was supposed to stay with her husband. Polina sat there until she fainted. Her terrified husband called an ambulance. At the hospital, she started bleeding, and the doctors couldn't stop it. She even needed several blood transfusions. Polina remembered waking up in the ICU under a sheet, surrounded by beeping machines. She somehow immediately understood that the baby was gone, and she cried, her tears falling onto the plastic surface of the hospital bed. Grisha came as soon as she was moved to a regular room. He looked guilty, but still acted like himself. He put on a dramatic show of repentance, gathering all the other patients around him. "It's me, the fool. I'm to blame for everything," he said, pounding his chest with his fists. "Polina, forgive me. I can't stand seeing you like this. It won't happen again." "Grisha, I'm not mad, really," she said quietly. "That's good," he brightened. "By the way, I'm leaving for a business trip to Myanmar for 2 weeks, so your mom will take care of you. I was worried I'd have to leave without seeing you." Polina really did forgive him. She could never hold a grudge. She usually blamed herself for any misfortune. Irina flew into the hospital furious. She fed Polina soup from a spoon, brought a bag with all the essentials, and for the full 2 weeks while Polina recovered, she scolded her. "Your Grisha is a tyrant. He doesn't love anyone but himself. He didn't care about your condition at all." "He's a good person," Polina sighed. "A little selfish, yes, but I still love him." "Does he love you?" Irina asked. "You know the saying, a husband loves his wife dearly." Grisha ran off on a business trip just to avoid dealing with problems. "And you can't even get to the bathroom yourself yet." Irina helped her bathe, combed the tangles from her ICU hair, comforted her, and hugged her every day. Polina understood what her friend was saying, but in her heart, she wasn't angry at Grisha. That's just how he was. What could she do? The reality of losing her baby hit her fully only after she was discharged from the hospital. Polina couldn't stand to see happy moms with strollers. Even school kids stirred up too many emotions in her. So in the evenings, she cried into her pillow, imagining what her son would have looked like as a first grader. Over time, the grief dulled a little. It didn't feel as sharp. Now, only the guilty faces of friends and colleagues reminded her of the loss. People would ask how she was doing, as if they were afraid she would burst out confessing everything. But Polina stayed quiet. Grisha returned from his business trip as if nothing had happened. He demanded soup and steaks, made noise, and told new jokes. Polina felt like it was all a terrible dream, and that any moment her baby would start moving in her completely flat stomach. Her husband had endless business trips again. Right now, he was leaving for a whole month to implement and set up things. Polina didn't pay much attention. She didn't understand the technical side of his work. Grisha, unbothered, explained things, pointed at his diagrams, and tried to share his successes. But there was one problem. This trip landed right on his mother's birthday, her 60th. No joke. "Will you give her a gift from me? Congratulate her," Grisha instructed before leaving. "Make it impressive so the neighbors are envious. Order a nice bouquet, and everything else. You know how important this is to Mom." "Oh, you should have canceled the trip," she said with a sad smile. After all, Nana Dmitrievna wanted to see her son, not her. "What can I do?" Grisha sighed. "No one else can replace me. You know that. My bosses only trust me with work like this. By the way, you should be proud of your husband. Who knows, maybe someday you'll be the wife of the plant director." "Grisha, what should I buy?" she asked. "What does your mom want?" "I don't know. That's all your women stuff." Her husband waved it off. "I left you some money. Don't forget yourself. And start eating properly, Polya. You're way too thin. I'm not a dog to throw butter at." She saw her husband off, finished her shift, and then went shopping. In the end, she chose a beautiful brooch for her mother-in-law at an antique shop. Nana Dmitrievna always dressed in a classic style. Even at the dacha, she never let herself relax. So Polina knew this would definitely please her. She added a light silk scarf and a large bouquet of white roses to the gift. By evening, Polina put on a sundress appropriate for such an occasion, hand-painted and handmade. It hid her painfully thin frame. The train ride would take 2 hours. After retiring, her mother-in-law had moved to the dacha to fully enjoy her beloved gardening. Her son didn't stop her, especially since she rented out her city apartment and got a good extra income from the government. Nana Dmitrievna worked in the arts, or at least she liked to say she did. She sold theater tickets at the drama theater, but carried herself like a prima donna. She called the actors by their first names and boasted about famous family connections. At first, Polina believed every story her mother-in-law told. She really thought Nana Dmitrievna was a multi-talented artist, staging plays, performing on stage, and selling tickets just for fun. When Grisha found out, he laughed for a long time. Polina was a little embarrassed about her naivety, but she still believed her mother-in-law was a good, kind woman who just wanted to add some color to her life. Polina loved riding the train, watching the scenery pass by the window, but today her mind was full of completely different thoughts. Her mother died young, leaving behind a school-aged daughter and her husband. Yuri wasn't a bad man, but he had a very common flaw. In simple terms, he drank, though not so much that he passed out in the streets or under bushes. He always came home, in his own words, on autopilot. By the age of 6, Polina could make her own breakfast, do her laundry, and go to bed without bedtime stories or hugs. The neighbors felt sorry for the widower with a child, but Polina never went to visit them. Her father sometimes worked and never brought company home. She rarely ate well as a child, and she didn't even dream of new clothes. She wore only what kind neighbors gave her. The first time her father was publicly shamed was when it was time to prepare her for first grade. Aunt Nadia, a neighbor, spoke up. "Yurik, aren't you ashamed? Your daughter has no ribbons, no backpack, no pen." "That's none of your business," he snapped as usual. "But they pay a pension for your daughter. Don't you drink it all away?" the neighbor asked angrily. "If you don't get it together, I'll go to child services. They'll take the child and your benefits. Polina would be better off in an orphanage than with a father like you." For a while it helped. He didn't stop drinking, but he worked construction for 6 months and even sent Polina to school. He even went to a parent-teacher meeting, but then he slipped back into drinking. That winter, she almost froze in their cold village house. Her father forgot to buy firewood, but the neighbors helped her until the last minute. They came to light the stove and brought food. Polina still remembered all of them with gratitude. By 3rd grade, things had become unbearable. Even among other village children, dressed in whatever they had, Polina looked like a beggar. In winter, she wore sneakers, no boots, and walked through deep snow in her mother's felt boots. She was sick all the time. Her father complained that she was weak, just like her mother. Polina remembered her mother's warm hands and cried. At school, children teased her for wearing hand-me-downs. One day, the neighbors had finally had enough of Yuri's drinking. They decided to get him treated. They brought a specialist to the village, a small, round woman with a kind face. But the stranger had a commanding voice. The alcoholic straightened up immediately, and the woman, Lena, began the treatment. When she finished her work, the narcologist noticed the little girl in the house. Polina was pressed against the wall, expecting another of her father's drunken outbursts. Lena had no children of her own, and she felt deeply for the poor little orphan. That day, she decided to stay. She lit the stove and cooked. For the first time in many years, the house smelled like fresh baking. A shy Yuri even took a white shirt out of the closet for the guest. From that moment, her father stopped drinking. For about 5 years, he didn't touch alcohol at all. At first, Lena came to their house a couple of times a week. She scolded Yuri for the mess, brought gifts for Polina from the city, and did all the cooking and laundry. Gradually, they became a family. They didn't get married. Lena didn't want that, but officially, people began to call her Polina's stepmother. Polina, however, believed that Lena was her real mother, the first person who truly cared about her. Lena earned well from her treatments, and she also worked at a psychiatric hospital. Later, she left completely for private medicine. She opened her own office and started her practice. In the summer, she even took her adopted daughter to work with her instead of a secretary. She constantly guided Polina. "Go into medicine. You can always earn a living there." "But my grades are bad," the girl sighed. "I don't remember anything. It goes in one ear and out the other." "That's okay, I'll prepare you. You'll get into college and it will get easier there," Lena said. "Not everyone has to be a doctor with a PhD. You can be a nurse." Lena knew that because of chronic undernourishment in childhood and some unlucky genetics, Polina would probably never become a top scholar. But the girl made up for it with diligence, persistence, and her genuine kindness. Her father worked in construction for 5 years. While he didn't drink, foremen and bosses respected him. But when Polina was in 8th grade, he started drinking again. He lost his humanity once more, and now he became aggressive, too. Both Lena and Polina suffered from his outbursts. A year later, her stepmother disappeared. Officially, she went for a swim and never came back. Polina was taking her final exams at the time, and everyone wondered what kind of swimming could happen in May. Lena wasn't into ice swimming, and that year the snow had only melted at the end of spring. Her belongings were found on the riverbank, but her bag was missing. Polina remembered clearly how she gave the police a description of her adoptive mother: chestnut hair, 1.55 meters tall, and a long scar across her arm. Lena never explained how she got that scar. She would just make a joke and not go into details. Sometimes Polina thought Lena must have had her own secrets, maybe even ones too scary to remember. She still missed Lena to this day. The woman's body was never found in the fast river, which was unfortunately common. That year there had been a big flood. Her father didn't worry much about the search. He used Lena's disappearance as an excuse to drink even more. That's when Polina decided to take control of her life. She studied hard, passed her college entrance exams, and got in. She applied for the orphan's pension, explaining her situation to child services, and then moved into the dormitory of the medical college. Her father continued drinking heavily. Talkative neighbors would report what they saw when they bumped into Polina in town. After losing the pension, he didn't even bother hiding his thefts. He would even steal food from the local cemetery during holidays. In the village, people just called him Yurik the drunk. Then Aunt Nadia called. "It burned down," she screamed into the phone. "Polinaka, you're completely alone now. There's nothing left at home." Yurik Propoitsa took everything with him and burned the house. They couldn't put it out. "Wow, what do I do now?" Polina asked sadly, thinking about all the photo albums with pictures of her mother and Lena that she had never taken. "We'll organize a funeral, don't worry. But it seems you're left without a home," Aunt Nadia said practically. "Go to child services, let them help. People these days don't care about orphans." Polina listened, and she was still grateful to her active neighbor. Thanks to Aunt Nadia, by the time Polina finished college, she got a one-room apartment from the city. It was in a new building. The repairs were simple, and at first, she even slept on a folding bed. Later, she got some furniture and dishes, and she was happy not to be without a roof over her head. At her father's funeral, she saw her distant relatives for the first time: her father's third cousin, Uncle Fedia, his wife, and Aunt Taya. They immediately offered for her to move in with them and came to visit her at college. They brought food, gifts, and even suggested adoption, but she was given only temporary guardianship. After all, she wasn't far from turning 18. Her relatives had long since moved to the Far East to be with their children, but they still sent packages with treats and gifts. Polina regularly spoke with the only family she had left, but she could never manage to visit them. Grisha wouldn't let his wife go so far, and he refused to travel himself. The walk from the station to her mother-in-law's house took 5 minutes. Polina hurried, afraid that Nana Dmitrievna would be upset by her son and daughter-in-law's neglect. The older woman was already waiting for her at the door. It was a solid, large house, not at all like the log cabin of her childhood. The walls were beautiful and white, and inside everything was perfectly clean. The outside of the house was painted a polite pale blue. Her mother-in-law romantically called it unforgettable. Everyone sat on the veranda. The samovar was hot, and the mother-in-law's famous plum pie smelled so good it made you want to swallow your tongue. The French-style meat dish turned out especially well. Polina praised the hostess but wondered why, with all her friendliness, she seemed so lonely. No other guests were expected for the celebration. "See, little Polya," Nana Dmitrievna sighed, "I spent 40 years in the theater, and now our lead directors don't even bother to send a congratulatory message. They threw me onto the scrap heap of history. And even my own son didn't come." Oh, Grisha is just on a business trip, Polina said, embarrassed. Always traveling, like a nomadic tribe, Nana Dmitrievna sighed. Listen, maybe we should invite my new neighbor? She's very refined. Rima, a retired doctor. We became good friends over the summer, but I was afraid to invite her. What if you don't want strangers? Why would I not? Polina smiled, noticing how bright her mother-in-law's mood became. I'd be happy to meet your wonderful neighbor. Oh, then I'll go quickly, and you can chop up the salad while I'm gone, Nana Dmitrievna said, smiling. I'm feeling quite hungry. Polina was just cutting bell peppers and olives for her signature salad with brine cheese when the door opened. Her mother-in-law entered, and with her came another woman. The guests seemed vaguely familiar, though Polina didn't think they had ever met. She looked about 60, slim, fit, with a short haircut. Still, there was something about her that seemed strangely recognizable. Good afternoon, said the woman in a deep, husky voice. I'm Rima Andreevna, Nana Dmitrievna's neighbor. Why didn't you tell me it was your birthday? I would have at least brought a gift, but I came empty-handed. Oh, don't worry, the hostess smiled. The best gift is guests with a good appetite. By the way, I have some homemade liqueur. Let's try it now. I don't drink, Polina and Rima Andreevna said at the same time. Oh, what am I going to do with you? Sighed the hostess. I'll drink the champagne all alone. Rima, your arms are strong. Can you open it for me? Of course. Rima nodded and rolled up the sleeves of her stylish sweater. Suddenly, her muscular arm appeared, marked by a long scar. Polina shivered. It looked so familiar. Oh, what's this? Her mother-in-law asked curiously. I've never noticed it before. I fell off a bike as a child. Rima waved it off. It was an open fracture and it didn't heal properly. My whole arm was cut up. Oh, how terrible! Nana Dmitrievna exclaimed, throwing up her hands. Then she started telling stories from her rich life in the local theater company all evening. Polina couldn't tell what was true and what was made up. Rima Dmitrievna joined in easily, adding the right comments, but she kept glancing at Polina. Polina's doubts grew. Rima Dmitrievna looked a lot like the late Lena, and the scar was on the same arm, but maybe she was mistaken. Still, Polina had no doubt about her stepmother's death. Lena could never have left her alone with a cruel, drinking father. My Polya is also a medical worker, Nana Dmitrievna said proudly. It's good to have medics in the family. I don't like bothering her, but now I'm happy to have Rima Andreevna nearby. She even came to give me injections for my back pain. That's how we became friends. Now we run errands for each other without a second thought. And where do you work? The guest asked. In a hospital? Polinaka works at the school, her mother-in-law said cheerfully. She loves the kids as a nurse. Too bad God hasn't given her any of her own yet. Polina blushed. Sometimes Nana Dmitrievna's directness bordered on rudeness, but in the end, she pretended everything was fine. By midnight, the neighbor got ready to go home. The conversation slowly died down. They had run out of topics, and the hostess looked a little tired. Polina decided to stay at her mother-in-law's for the whole weekend, help around the house, and also get a closer look at the new neighbor. She still didn't want to admit it, but this strange woman was driving her almost crazy. Still, she couldn't be sure it was really Lena. Nana Dmitrievna, what do you actually know about this new neighbor? Polina asked while washing dishes. Her mother-in-law was drying a plate. She moved here 6 months ago. Seems to be a widow, but I'm not sure. Nana Dmitrievna shrugged. She's a doctor, but she won't say what kind. Worked as a therapist in a village, I think. I don't know her story. Maybe some personal drama. You should be careful with her, Polina warned. Who knows what kind of person she is? She's a wonderful woman, her mother-in-law said indignantly. She even gave me a rare plant seedling. You young people always think you know better than us. I've lived my life. I can read people better than you. It's just strange, Polina said. Such an impressive woman, but all alone. No kids, no family. Well, maybe she has them somewhere, just doesn't show, the hostess replied. Even my son doesn't hurry to visit. So, does that make her lonely? Polina asked silently. She agreed with herself, frequent visitors or not, the woman really was alone. They finished washing the dishes and went to their bedrooms. Meanwhile, Grisha was not on a business trip, as his mother and wife naively believed. He was at his lover's place. Over the past 6 months, he had been neglecting his work duties, caught up in a wild affair with a charming Laura. They met during one of his flights around the country. The woman also loved business trips and worked in a similar field, but she claimed her work was secret and didn't say much about it. Grisha laughed at his lover. He was sure she was just a regular manager who wouldn't be trusted with any real secrets. That's why he freely spilled all his work secrets to her. He was tired of his wife only half listening, but Larissa hung on every word, amazed by his talents. This flattered the ambitious, but not very clever, man. Today, he wanted to impress Larissa. He showed her photos on his phone of the blueprints and prototype of their newest project, something their competitors could only dream about. Larissa watched and listened carefully. Grisha went on boasting, like a nightingale. But when he fell asleep, she grabbed his phone and quickly sent all the photos to herself, erasing any trace of sending them. Then she went outside, saying she needed coffee, and called a contact. Ivan Ospek, I have the designs.
I sent them to you, she said.
I'll come over and we'll see if we can beat them on schedule. You're amazing, goddaughter, the man said. At first, I didn't believe in this plan at all. Who would think a leading engineer at a project site could be so easily charmed by women? You've convinced me. And what about the second one from the other factory? Everything will be ready next week, Larissa reported. He's ready too. He promised me a tour of the workshop. He knows someone in security there, so they won't check me seriously. Oh, goddaughter, men are so foolish, aren't they? Ivan Iosifovich chuckled. But we'll handle them all. If anyone gets hurt, it's their own fault. They shouldn't have fallen for a pretty face and lovely eyes. Well, what can you do? You use what nature gave you, Larissa muttered. All right, I better go before he wakes up. She stepped into the dark, heading toward the 24-hour supermarket. At 29, Larissa Streltsova was already recognized as a genius in industrial espionage. Even the most secure companies fell under her charm, and the business of the godfather who had raised her thrived by stealing other people's ideas and intercepting orders. Larissa didn't see anything wrong with it. She truly believed that any information leaks were just failures of the companies themselves. Half an hour later, she returned to the apartment that had been rented for her. Grisha was asleep, mouth open, snoring loudly. Larissa wrinkled her nose in disgust. She didn't like this young man, but the relationship was worth it. Soon she could quietly disappear from his life, find an excuse, or even call his wife. Let him worry about saving the family and the thought of a divorce. She had a few men like Grisha, self-satisfied engineers with access to secrets. Polina couldn't sleep. She had been standing by the window for a long time, looking at the dark garden and the windows of the neighboring house. They glowed with the dim light of a lamp or a nightlight. Occasionally, Rima Andreevna appeared on the porch. Apparently, she also suffered from insomnia. But Polina suspected it wasn't just that. She was desperately trying to remember Lena's face. It had been 10 years since her death. Lena had been a chubby, cheerful girl with a deep, but not hoarse, voice, always wearing her long hair in a tight braid. Rima Andreevna, in contrast, looked slim, even athletic, as if she exercised regularly. Short hair, completely gray. This woman was so different from Lena, and yet there was something familiar. Polina was about to go to bed when she suddenly heard a faint noise coming from her mother-in-law's room. She carefully opened the door a little and peeked inside. In the window's light, she saw Nana Dmitrievna clutching her chest. Polina stepped into the room and turned on the light. Her mother-in-law looked gray, her lips blue. Her fingers twisted the edge of the blanket. She gasped for air again. Polina called an ambulance. They said they received the call, but it would take about an hour to get there. The bridge had been washed away by the flood, and the detour to the dacha village was slow. Meanwhile, her mother-in-law stopped breathing. Polina ran to her, remembering CPR. Bits of what she had learned came back in her mind. She pressed on the chest, blew air into the lungs. After a few moments, the breathing returned. Polina was terrified. She ran out of the house in her pajamas, crossed the small fence to the neighbor's yard, and banged on the door. "What's happening?" Rima Andreevna asked, peeking through the crack. "Fire? Or no. Nana Dmitrievna is dying. Her heart. And I'm not a doctor." Polina cried. "Let's go." Rima Andreevna jumped onto the porch in her tracksuit. Inside the house, they found Nana Dmitrievna unconscious again, but Rima acted faster and more professionally. They got her heart beating again, and some tablets under her tongue eased the attack. The ambulance arrived in half an hour. They took her to the hospital. She still looked weak, but tried to sit up. Polina, walking the doctors to the gate, remembered how Lena once revived a drowning child by the river. Calm, precise, no panic. Now she was certain she had met the same woman from her past, but couldn't understand why she used a different name. "Want to come to my place? Why sit in an empty house?" Rima Andreevna offered. "I probably won't sleep anyway." "Okay, just let me grab my phone. I'll try to call Grisha." "That's your husband?" Rima asked. "Yes, he doesn't know his mother is sick. He'd go crazy with worry. Judging by how often he visits here, I don't think he's in danger of going crazy," Rima said with a sly smile. Still, Nana Dmitrievna was a self-sufficient woman. She could change a radio, tell the latest gossip, share stories, even put on a little play if she wanted. "Do you think she was pretending?" Polina asked, surprised. "No, that attack was real." The neighbor shook her head. "But the back pain? Your mother-in-law made that up," Rima Andreevna smiled. "She just wanted to meet me. When I first came here, I didn't tell anyone I'm a medical worker. You know how neighbors suddenly swarm with requests for shots and blood pressure checks. But then I accidentally mentioned it, and it all went wrong." The next day, Nana Dmitrievna was already at the gate, groaning and gasping. "But you were giving her injections," Polina reminded her. "Yes, just vitamins, not the block injections your mother-in-law thought." Rima Andreevna laughed. "She likes being the center of attention, but her tricks don't work on her son." "Do you have children?" "A husband?" Polina asked directly, as they sat on the veranda of the small summer house, holding cups of coffee. "No, it didn't happen." Rima Andreevna shook her head. "Well, I had husbands too even, but I'm a widow now. I inherited this dacha, without even knowing about it, and decided to live out my money here. I grew up in the village," Polina said. "My mom died early. And, they say stepmothers are mean, lots of stories and fairy tales. But my life really started when my father found a new woman. He never married her, but she became like a mother to me. I miss her a lot. I never forgot her." "Do you visit your foster mother often?" Rima Andreevna asked quietly.
"No, she died drowned."
"They never found her body, but it doesn't matter," Polina sighed. "She wanted me to go into medicine, but my father didn't care. He drank himself to death and burned our house in the end." "Wait, you grew up in an orphanage?" Rima Andreevna exclaimed. "No, I lived on my own. I managed. Some distant relatives helped a little," Polina answered. But so many times she had thought about how life might have been if Lena had stayed with her. So many things she wanted to say. "Then say them," Rima Andreevna said softly. "You recognized me, despite everything." "I did," Polina whispered. "But what should I call you?" She wiped tears from her cheeks with the palm of her hand. "By now, I've been married twice and even changed my name legally once," Rima Andreevna explained. "No fraud, no fake passports. Nothing like that." "But people were looking for you," Polina pressed. "I remember. The police came. A case was opened. You were at the station." Rima Andreevna just nodded. 3 months after my supposed death, I explained everything. They didn't hold anything against me. "Why did you do this to me? Why did you run?" Polina asked, still struggling to believe the truth. "My dear Polya, life is often more complicated than we expect," Rima Andreevna said, tears running down her face. "Life with your father was never easy. And when he started drinking again and refused to get help, things became horrible. You don't know, but the night before I left, your father tried to strangle me while drunk. I went to the river in the morning so you wouldn't see the bruises on my neck. I didn't want him to go to jail. And legally, I couldn't get custody of you anyway. So, you were just scared?
Polina asked. No.
I thought about it a lot. I even wanted to wait until you were 18 and run away together, but fate had other plans, Rima Andreevna said. At the river, I only took a bag with the bare essentials. I left my clothes behind, put on other jeans and a sweater, and went to my empty apartment. For some reason, everyone immediately believed I had drowned. The police didn't even come to my address. Did your father look for you? Polina asked. Who were you running from? From myself, probably, the woman sighed. I left as soon as the bruises faded. My voice had become hoarse, which actually helped me. But the damage to my throat was permanent. Now I always sound hoarse. I cut my hair and dyed it blonde. In that panic, I couldn't eat or sleep. I lost so much weight in 3 months, I barely recognized myself. Then I married an old acquaintance in a neighboring region and changed my last name. Why did you need to change your name? Polina asked again. Oh, my life has far more secrets than it seems, Rima Andreevna admitted suddenly. Take this scar, for example. Many years ago, the people who kidnapped me gave it to me. How is that possible? Polina asked, shocked. I grew up in a very rich family in a neighboring region, Rima Andreevna explained. It was a big story at the time, even in the newspapers. But all that happened 10 years before you were born. My father was one of the first business cooperators. He ran a video rental store and an arcade. Later, he moved into other businesses. I was the golden girl, always surrounded by comfort. But when I was 20, I was kidnapped and it broke me. My father's competitors wanted to force him to give up his business. I was taken near my university and brought to some house. They tortured me on camera, beat me, humiliated me. What a horror. Polina paled. And did your father agree to their demands? No, Rima Andreevna said sadly, tears suddenly falling. He refused to negotiate. They threw me near the regional hospital building like a broken doll. The scar on my arm is the only reminder. The rest healed. My parents came to the hospital, but I didn't want to see them. I never forgave my father. After leaving the hospital, I just collected my things. At university, I took an academic leave and started working at a narcology clinic. At first, just as a nurse, then I studied more and became a doctor. So, you're still afraid of becoming someone's target?
Polina asked.
Is your father still alive? I don't know. Rima Andreevna shook her head. I've never tried to find out. They're probably around 60 now. Maybe they had more children. Maybe they're dead. I don't want to know. One time was enough to understand my father's methods in business. That's why you ran away, Polina nodded. You remembered the abuse and got scared.
Yes.
Many years ago, I promised myself I would never tolerate something like that, Rima Andreevna said. Keeping that promise was more important than anything, or I would have gone mad. And forgive me, dear, you weren't to blame at all. I loved you like my own daughter, maybe even more. After being kidnapped, I can't have my own children. I love you too. Polina jumped up and hugged her tightly. I never stopped. You're the best thing in my life. And if I ever had a real mother, it was you. The woman who came to that cold, empty house, just because she felt sorry for a little girl pressed against the wall. I accepted you immediately, Rima Andreevna said, hugging her, tears falling. I loved you from the start. Not a day passed without thinking of you. Yesterday, when I saw you, I thought I might have a heart attack. Polina noticed that Nana Dmitrievna had never shown her any of these photos. I don't want to leave you, Polina said, smiling through her tears. And please don't run away. Of course not. Rima Andreevna held her close. We're family forever. Mom, Polina whispered. That was the only word that felt right now. You'll always be my mom, no matter what happens. I missed you too, Rima Andreevna said, holding her tighter. If only I had known that Yurka had died, but it was my fault. I left, burned the bridges, and you, poor thing, struggled alone. Well, I got into medical school, just like you wanted, Polina smiled. And I think it's the best job. I'm very proud of you. Rima Andreevna wiped her tears. This time, they were tears of happiness. Well, cried enough? Let's try to sleep. This is your home too now. And we need to write a will. Why do you immediately talk about death? Polina laughed, a little shocked. Silly girl. You're not alone anymore. Neither am I. We need to take care of everything, her adoptive mother said, hugging her. Polina was just drifting into a worried sleep when her phone rang. Insistently. Demanding. She fumbled for the phone and answered. It was the hospital. Please come immediately. There's an urgent problem that can't wait, the doctor said. The faster, the better. A direct relative should come. Who's her son? He must come. I'll try to find him, Polina promised. You must if you want the patient to survive, said the doctor, then hung up. Polina stared at the phone, then tried calling her husband. No answer. She called the factory to find out where Grisha was on his business trip. But the reply confused her. Kuznetsova wasn't sent on a business trip. He's on unpaid leave for a week.
What?
That's impossible.
Polina gasped.
He even missed his mother's anniversary. All because of your business trips? This must be a mistake. The woman on the phone spelled it out slowly. All business trips are recorded. Kuznetsov last left 4 months ago.
What?
He's barely home. Always on the projects. Polina muttered. Figure it out with your husband yourself. Don't drag us into family matters, the woman said. Polina stared at her phone for a long time, sent a message to her husband, tried calling again until her fingers hurt, then got up to wake Rima Andreevna. Something had to be done. Polina didn't know it yet, but her call was recorded by the factory security. Over the past 6 months, many questions had built up about Kuznetsova, and this call became the spark that launched a major investigation into his reliability. 2 disheveled women, with swollen eyes from crying and sleeplessness, rushed into the hospital emergency room 2.5 hours later. The security guard stared at them, blinking. Where are you going? He asked. To cardiology, I think, Polina said, flustered. They said it's very urgent. My mother-in-law was brought here last night. Nona Dmitrievna Kuznetsova. They said she's in a coma in the ICU.
What?
Coma? Polina sank onto a bench. Her legs wouldn't hold her. Okay, I'll call a doctor. Maybe he's on the floor. Don't faint. The guard got nervous and left. A woman with a strong, unpleasant smell rushed over to Polina. Slowly, the faint feeling began to fade. Who's here for Kuznetsova? A deep male voice called out. I was told to bring her son, but I couldn't find him, Polina whispered, explaining her phone calls. And can you tell me how she is? Follow me, the doctor said, leading them. My name is Sergei Sergeyevich Kornov. I'm a cardiac surgeon. Your mother-in-law needs urgent heart surgery. But she's unconscious, and we can't wait. And you say you don't know where her son is? Can I sign the consent?
Polina asked.
No, you can't, the doctor said firmly. A daughter-in-law is not considered a close relative. Please, doctor. Polina suddenly threw her arms around him. Save Nona Dmitrievna. Hey, he gently pushed her back. You're married, right? Polina realized he wasn't really angry. She studied him. He was not very tall, athletic, with a pleasant smile and light brown hair. He also had a complex cologne with hints of wood and sage. For a moment, Polina thought she wouldn't mind just leaning against him, but she stopped herself. What's really happening, she wondered. Sergei Sergeyevich looked at the young, anxious woman and felt a small regret that she was already married. Judging by her story, though, her married life didn't seem very happy. Sergei promised himself that he would try to ask her out. Even if it didn't look very proper, he had finally understood what love at first sight really felt like. Sergei, Polina said softly, almost pleading, isn't there anything we can do? Oh, whatever, he said, waving his hand. Just fill out the consent form. Maybe no one will check the relationship too closely. I'll get the operating room ready. He left, moving quickly down the hall, while Polina stayed behind with the hospital form in her hands. Rima Andreevna looked at her and immediately took on the role of a potential mother-in-law, quietly examining the young doctor for flaws. "Bit short," she muttered. "And that cologne is unusual." "I like it," Polina said dreamily. "Mom, what are we even talking about?" To focus, Polina began quickly filling out the form. The letters swam before her eyes, but she finally signed it and waited. Sergei Sergeyevich grabbed the paper on the run, waved it to someone at the end of the corridor, and kept moving. Polina noticed immediately how fast and efficient he was, a stark contrast to her lazy, unreliable husband. The operation lasted 4 hours. All that time, Polina tried unsuccessfully to reach Grisha. He didn't answer his phone. She felt frustrated, realizing his lies had gone too far, and she worried about Nona Dmitrievna's condition. But in the end, everything went well. Sergei Sergeyevich, in his green surgical gown, came out of the operating room, pulling off his mask and wiping his face. Suddenly, an older man, shaking with anger, appeared in the hallway. He looked like a grumpy bureaucrat, but instead of a round back, he had a heavy belly. "Kornov," the man shouted. "I'll throw you in jail for this. What's this paper you gave me? It's pure fiction. The operation can't happen without consent from a direct relative. Tell that to the patient." Sergei waved him off. "And, by the way, winners don't get judged." The short, angry man shouted, spitting as he talked. "Oh, really? You think you're Julius Caesar? They only let you do this out of pity." "Oh, I thought it was because there was no one else to operate," Sergei smiled. "I trained with the best doctors in the country. Your local undertrained staff can't even make a straight stitch. Keep talking, I dare you." "They'll report you if they want," the man growled. "So now what? Wait for a Ministry of Health inspection and let an arrogant doctor decide my fate? Am I suspended?" Sergei asked the department head. "Yes, indefinitely, until we decide what to do with you," came the sharp reply. "And the patient?" Sergei reported. "The operation went perfectly. We're moving her to the post-op ward." "Polina, wait for me outside. I'll explain everything. This place is crazy right now," he added. Polina and Rima Andreevna stepped outside. Half an hour later, Sergei joined them. Polina nearly hugged him to the ground in relief. "Thank you so much. And sorry, I'm a medical worker myself. I should have known I was making you take a risk," Polina said. "Oh, stop hugging me or I might get used to it and start hugging back," Sergei laughed. "Sevelik is just hot-headed," she said to Rima Andreevna. "He rages, then calms down. He's a good guy, just has many jealous people at the hospital. I knew the risks going in." "Okay, sorry, I won't do it again," Polina blushed. "What did you want to talk about?" Sergei asked. "Even though the operation went well, I'd recommend considering a pacemaker. Your mother-in-law clearly has rhythm problems. When her son arrives, he should talk to her about it." "Okay," Polina nodded. "She'll live, right?" "Of course. My patients are tough," Sergei smiled. "I think I'll die of hunger before I eat," he said. "My 24-hour shift ended 4 hours ago." "Come to our place," Rima Andreevna offered. "We'll have a hearty meal for the best doctor. I'm a doctor too, an addiction specialist."
Wow.
"A medical family," Sergei said in admiration. "And your daughter? What's her role?" "I'm a nurse," Polina replied. "My mom's talented, and I feel comfortable in my position too." Sergei offered them a ride in his car. On the way to the country house, he joked and laughed as if the threat of suspension had never existed. Polina couldn't calm down until her phone rang. "Polina Yuryevna, this is security from your husband's company. I sent you some photos." "Take a look," said the caller. "Yes," she replied, confused. "And who is he with?" "With a woman who does industrial spying, your husband Grigory's mistress," the security officer explained. "So, your husband needs to report to work immediately, or the police will start looking for him," he added. "What did he do?" Polina asked, frightened. "There's suspicion he was selling information about our projects," the man sighed. "This could lead to serious jail time and property confiscation." Tell your husband to hurry. But I don't know where he is, Polina said in panic. I have no idea, and I don't want to know anymore. Well, we would like to know, the officer said. And you probably realize he wasn't on business trips. He was with this woman. If you need, we can send more photos for the divorce. Polina stared at her phone in shock. It felt like a requiem for her family life had just played. The awkward pause was broken by Sergei. I guess our hugs can't compromise anyone anymore. Polina, what do you think about marrying a doctor?
What?
I'm not even divorced from the engineer yet, she smiled sadly. But it's an interesting idea.
Good.
Then let's test your mother-in-law cooking skills, Sergei joked. They all laughed together. It was very funny. Grigory finally showed up 3 days later. By that time, his mother was already recovering. Polina had even filed for divorce. He was furious. How could you betray me at a time like this? He yelled over the phone. Come home immediately. We need to talk. I think your problems are bigger than you realize. Like industrial espionage, Polina said calmly. You should go to the factory. They threatened to call the police.
What?
My mother is in the hospital. I need to go there first, Grigory protested.
Yes.
That's the last place you're needed, Polina replied, tired. Anyway, Kay, good luck with your mistress and all your messes, she added. I've got more important things to do now, Polina said. She took a short break from work, luckily during the school holidays. Sergei, who had been suspended from work, now spent every day at Rima Andreevna's dacha. At the same time, he was choosing from 5 offers from private clinics. A talented surgeon like him was in high demand, so he could afford to be picky. But the main reason Polina needed a break was to make a trip to the neighboring region. After a lot of persuading, Rima Andreevna agreed. She didn't want to face the ghosts of the past, but Polina convinced her it was necessary. They drove there together in Sergei's car. Rima Andreevna's voice shook as she told him where to turn. Finally, the car stopped in front of a beautiful brick mansion in English style. On the porch, behind a locked fence, an old man napped in a rocking chair. Hearing the car, he opened his eyes, jumped up, and hurried to the gate. Luba, quick. Papa, whispered Rima Andreevna as she stepped out of the car. Andriush, what's going on? I'm cooking dinner, peeped a plump grandmother from the door. She looked past the gate, dropped her spatula in surprise. Lenachka. Polina's mother ran to the gate too. Their hands shook. The button to open the gate didn't work at first. Then they both ran to their daughter. Polina stood there, eyes closed, crying. Andrei Igorevich Belozerov, the powerful and respected city owner, fell to his knees on the asphalt. Daughter, forgive me, my dear, he sobbed. I was so wrong back then. Papa, what are you doing?
Get up.
Rima Andreevna pulled him up. I've forgiven you a long time ago, Polina said. And who's this in the car? Asked Lyubov Nikolaevna, waving her hands. A grandson. A granddaughter, Rima Andreevna said proudly. This is my daughter, Polya, your granddaughter. They stayed with her family for almost a week. Then Rima Andreevna stayed with her parents, and Polina left with Sergei. They had things to do. A month later, Polina's divorce was finalized. Sergei started work at a new clinic. Nona Dmitrievna was finally discharged from a hospital. When she heard the news, she teared up a little but blessed her former daughter-in-law for moving on. Sergei and Polina had a beautiful wedding. Polina walked into the registry office with a slightly rounded belly. She was 4 months pregnant, but no one cared, and everyone was at the wedding. The elderly Chita Belozerov family, Rima Andreevna, and Nona Dmitrievna were there. Grigory was not. He was busy in court. And Polina's ex-husband had to answer for his crimes under the full force of the law. After the wedding, life slowly settled into a new rhythm. Polina and Sergei moved into a cozy apartment near the city hospital, where he now worked full-time. Every morning, Polina would wake to the sunlight spilling through the curtains, a soft kick reminding her that their little baby was already full of life. She often laughed, feeling tiny hands nudge her from inside, imagining the little face she would soon hold. Rima Andreevna and Nona Dmitrievna became frequent visitors. They filled the apartment with warmth, advice, and laughter. Polina often caught herself smiling just watching them interact, realizing that the family she had longed for all her life was slowly becoming real. Sergei, once all work and no heart, had transformed. He was attentive, gentle, and endlessly patient. At night, he would hold Polina's hand, telling her how proud he was of her and how excited he was to be a father. Polina felt safe in his arms in a way she had never known. One quiet evening, Rima Andreevna sat with Polina by the window, looking out at the city lights. "You've done so much, my dear," she said softly. "You've fought, survived, and found love. Don't ever doubt yourself." Polina leaned her head against her stepmother's shoulder, feeling the weight of the past lift just a little. Months passed, and the day finally came when their daughter was born. Polina held her tiny, perfect child and whispered, "You are our miracle." Sergei kissed her forehead, tears in his eyes, and said, "We're a family now, forever." The baby grew surrounded by love, laughter, and stories of strength and courage. Polina often told her about Lena, about the women who had guided and protected her, and how life had a way of giving second chances. Sergei shared his own stories, making sure their daughter knew what it meant to work hard, love fiercely, and never give up. Grigory faded into the background, a shadow of the past. His mistakes, lies, and betrayals became nothing more than lessons that had strengthened Polina. She had found her own happiness, and nothing could take it away. As the years passed, Polina and Sergei's love only deepened. Their daughter grew into a curious, kind-hearted girl, adored by everyone around her. Family dinners were filled with stories, laughter, and the warmth of genuine love. Rima Andreevna and Nona Dmitrievna watched with pride, knowing that the little girl had inherited the strength, courage, and heart of the women who had raised her mother. And Polina? She never forgot the hard times, the heartbreak, and the losses, but she knew that without them, she would never have found the family, love, and joy she had now. Standing by Sergei's side, holding her daughter, she finally understood what it meant to live fully and fearlessly. Life wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it was theirs. And that was more than enough.